here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings and salutations and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, I know you when you hear my voice when I come just rolling over the hill like that, a little rolling thunder. You think that your Shedadamus is just nonstop emotion all the time, 24/7, 365, right? That's not the case because I am drained. And if I'm drained, I can only guess how the Penrith Panthers feel because this season has just sapped me. I haven't even made it to the finals yet, and I don't know what I'm going to experience this weekend. I'm still recovering from what happened last weekend. I'm on the ropes, all right? I'm on the ropes. I've got a C4 in front of me. What do we got here? Frozen bombsicle. I'm sucking on that thing, hoping that that didn't sound good. I'm drinking this, hoping that it just gets me juiced, brings me back to the level that you guys all deserve. But I digress. Because what I need to talk to you about right now, before I can go any farther, is to break down what we experienced in round 25. Again, I'm happy that the kids' college tuition funds aren't based on your Shedadamus' picks right now because they're all over the board. We don't know what's going to happen from week in and week out. I'm saying there's still people coming punch drunk out of Leichhardt right now after thinking the Tigers were getting ready to go over the top of the Cows with that 2005 celebration, right? We see a flick pass by May. We think that, the celebration's on. Again, there goes your money down the drain because it didn't stay that way. And that's how the whole season's been. But that's what's made it beautiful, too. I'm not, there's no kids' tuition on my picks on this show. But I'm going to say, I am drained. Now, as I go into the breakdown around 25, I look at one team right now because the first game of the round was Rabbitohs and Dragons, and it was Bunnies 40, Dragons 0. Excuse me, St. George, are you going to show up for the rest of the season? I hope this isn't a precursor about what we're going to see because that was the biggest victory margin ever in a Bunnies-Dragons competition. That's right. A team that's decimated by injury somehow comes out. And listen, St. George fan, don't throw stones at me. I know you've got your injuries as well. But you don't have the injuries that you should lose 40 to Nugget to South Sydney. You just shouldn't. All right? And I can't even imagine what Flano was like in the sheds afterwards. That might have been such a bad beating that he didn't even have anything to say. He probably just walked in, stared at all of them, and then just walked out the door. Went and got himself. He was probably so upset, he probably went and grabbed a can of XXX Gold. That's how upset Flano was right there. I was blown away by that, but that should have showed me what I was going to deal with the rest of the time because I'm going to say something right now. The Chooks have really got themselves in a tough predicament right now because they've got to beat Melbourne this weekend. And then they've got to take on a South Sydney team that it almost seems like they're so angry at everybody, including your Shedadamus, who said that they probably were in the box seat for the wooden spoon. Because since that moment happened, the Bunnies have been on fire. They have been taking scalps and just running down the ridge. It's pretty incredible to see that, and I really don't know. I can't even say anything for St. George. That was just poor all the way around, and I'm probably editing that for television because I've got viewers of all ages for Outside the Sheds. But anyway, great victory for the Rabbitohs. Back to square minus 50 for the Dragons after that, and then we had it. Shedheads. Yes, we got to watch that despicable game with the Bunnies. Unless you're a Bunnies fan, it was probably a great game. But Raiders 20, Panthers 16. The Baby Greens get one step closer to putting their hands fully on that trophy, that minor premiership. But we get another just just barn-burning game. A game that made you just start to salivate thinking about the finals, what we might see. We're going to talk about that because that's the game we're doing the deep dive on here in a few moments. But Ethan Strange is a star. I think if anybody didn't know that already, we know that now. Ethan Strange is a star. But one bad thing about this game, and you know, I don't care who you root for. I don't think anybody wants to see players that have so much invested. And the highs and the lows of sport is just so brutal. But Xavier Savage has been lost for the season for the Baby Greens, for the Raiders. And this is a guy that just 2 weeks ago was on top of the world. They have a special on him for Indigenous Round, and now his season's over. And you know, that's the thing about the game. You love it. We love the brutality of it. We love the physicality of it all. But to watch guys who have gone through 25 rounds of pain, 25 rounds of sacrifice, go down now and not be able to finish out the season with their teams, it's brutal. It's just brutal all the way around. Storm 20, Bulldogs 14. The Storm make it 5 on a trot, 11 out of 12, and look like they are the Storm of old. I know we were talking weeks ago, they can't play at night, they can't play in the wet. Are you kidding? This is a bellyache squad. And he's going to shore them up with a little bit of super glue here, a little bit of sticky spray on the jersey, on the suit. And that team will be firing late like they are right now. Yes, the Doggies had a good second half. Yes, the Doggies stepped up the game. By the way, Shedheads, if you hear that, that is my 25 pounds of watchdog, Rico, and my 20 pounds of watchdog probably going crazy at a delivery right now. So that's what the concerto you hear in my background is right now, because Mrs. Shedadamus is outside with my other rescue dog. So anyway, let's continue this beautiful show, and just ignore that if you can. But the Dogs did try to really come back, and they did show a little bit of resolve in the second half. But I don't know if you're feeling 100% confident right now in them sealing up that top 4 bid and that top 4 spot, because they've got to play a lot better. They've got to play a lot more consistent. And a lot of people think the Cameron Sorrello is going to take a lot of positives out of that second half, but you can't still, because you lost. And that's the number one thing, is what was the scoreboard? How did it finish? And the Doggies didn't bring it home. So, again, Storm going to storm, and the Dogs are still trying to find out. Yes, a lot of people thought that this season was, there for the taking for them in some ways. It's not panning out that way yet, but we still have 2 rounds left in this. Sea Eagles 58, Dolphins 30. Daily Cherry Evans' 350th game, and his team, no matter if they're mad at him or not, no matter if they're upset the way that the season's gone because of him saying he's leaving the club, whatever you want to say, they showed up. They played a strong game for him. It was 10 tries. Wow. That's the thing about this Manly team, and that's what has a lot of the Sea supporters so upset. And it sometimes has, people in different crosshairs, because that's what they were expecting from this team all along. Turbo looks like he's starting to get more and more comfortable back in the fullback position. But with that type of strike, putting 10 tries down like that, that's what this team has in them. There wasn't much else to say. You kind of feel for the Finns a little bit, because I think that they're just starting to go on vapors, kind of like your Shedadamus was a few minutes ago to start the show. I think that's the exact same thing that they were going through right there. I think they're just fatigued. I think sometimes you just hit a round where you run into a team that is on all cylinders, it's flying down the track. There's nothing you can do. You're going to get freight trained, you're going to get argued in the chin, and you're going to get a cleat on the chest. And that's what happened to the Dolphins. Big victory for the Sea Eagles. A lot of people haven't had them written off. Yes, they're going to have some things fall for them to actually get into the finals. But the only thing they can do right now is win. And they pull that off. And congratulations to DC for game 350. Warriors 32, Titans 18. Waz finally break that hoodoo at 3. They have been owned by the Gold Coast Titans recently. Now, here's the crazy thing about it. You would never know that the Gold Coast Titans have owned the Waz recently, because I could have almost swore that game was taking place in Mount Smart. I looked in that crowd every time they showed it. I was not seeing many Gold Coast Titans jerseys, if I saw any at all. It sounded like a home game. That is so sad, because right now there's a big battle going on up at Gold Coast, because right now the Suns just made it into the AFL Finals for the first time in their 15-year history. And now the Gold Coast Titans are struggling to just win. They've only won 5 games all season. So when you look at that, there's a battle for the heart of Gold Coast. And right now, one team's in the finals, and the other team has got 5 victories, and things are coming down the track because of that, which we're going to talk about here shortly. But, that was just... And I don't know what's going on. There's got to be something going on with Jaden Campbell. He just has not been... That's almost 3 weeks in a row. He's just been a shell of the player that we started to see come into his own for a while. And, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes with these players. They're human beings. They have things with their families. We understand that. But it's so disappointing to see him kind of take a step back after I thought he was kind of coming to the forefront as being one of the stars in the league. But we'll have to wait and see if he can kind of pull his, pull the ship up out of that dead spin. But big victory for the Waz. And it really kind of gets them in place to hold on to that top 4 position. And RTS is going to RTS with his 2 tries as well. Eels 30, Roosters 10. Walker goes down early, and the Chooks could never recover. They just couldn't. You really saw how important Hollywood Walker is to the Sydney Roosters. They were nowhere close to the same team after Sam Walker went down. And it makes you really concerned, if you are a Roosters fan, what's going to happen, because the record that Bellyache has over Trent Robinson and the Chooks. It is not good. And not having their chief playmaker there, and maybe one of the best players, if not the best player in the second half of the season or since his return, you can't feel too confident going down to Melbourne if you're the Sydney Roosters. But the Eels, Mitchell Moses, the Fox, putting on a display, winding back the clock a little bit. This Eels team, if you're an Eels fan, yes, Dom, I'm talking about you, Blue and Gold Army. Woo, yeah. Anyway, what I'm saying is, you got to feel pretty good if you can get through the rest of the season healthy and have a great preseason. The Eels might be a smoky for the 2026 season to get back in that top 8 and really do some damage. Big victory for them over the Chooks, and a really, really bad loss for the Sydney Roosters. Ben Hunt playing his 350th game, does nothing less but perform since he's been back in the halfback position. Broncos 46, Knights 12. That top 4 push for the Brisbane Broncos continues. Come on. All of us knew that the Broncos were going to demolish them, and they did. But, it's going to come down to more hoodoos being broke, because I think if they're going to try to get in the top 4, the Brisbane Broncos are going to have to beat the Melbourne Storm. And they can't do it. It's been, it's worse than anything that the Waz have had to deal with the Titans. This is a curse. And they're going to have to get through that. Yes, they got a good victory over the Newcastle Knights. They got to work on some things on their attack and work on some defensive, and Tony Staggs is a beast. But that was expected. What's going to be something we're needing to see is if they can get over a heavyweight well, for sure, let's not go. We're looking over something else. We've got a Queensland Derby coming up, and the Cows are going to play. We saw what they did, and let's just go right into that. Cowboys 34, Tigers 28. That's what the Broncos are going to have to deal with. This Cowboys team is kind of woken up late in the season. They just got done crushing the hearts of all the fans at Leichhardt, who got to see one of the best tries since the 2005 victory in the Benji flip to Pat Richards. And they had a big lead in the second half. Big lead. And they just could not hold it down. I will say this right now, Tigers fans, I'm not here to pile on. I'm not here to pile on because they lost a key player, no different than the Chooks losing Hollywood Walker. That Adam Dewey missed tackle or bad decision to tackle low like he did. Tomalolo is not a guy to go low on. That guy's got tree trunks, and I did not see an axe in Adam Dewey's hands. He got freight trained, broken bone in his face, orbital bone I think was broken, and you could kind of see that, how quickly it was swelling. He was already getting a black eye. I think, again, we see how important Adam Dewey is to this West Tigers team, and I really don't think that Benji has to look far for his Habs combination for next season, because Jerome Luai, as soon as Dewey went down, we finally got to see some of the Jerome Luai that we were wanting to see. And I think with another offseason that they're going to have, you're going to see this Tigers team really push for that top 8 next year. Now, back to the team that actually won it, the Cowboys. Again, if you're a Cows fan, I know this just leaves you scratching your head and just almost screaming in your pillow, because this team, 1 week, you think they look like they were down and out. They scored 3 tries in 5 minutes, 6 minutes or whatever to come back and overtake the Tigers. They've got all the strike in the world. And so when I was saying the Broncos better not look over the Queensland Derby to look at their big game coming up against the Storm to end the season, they could fall to the Cowboys. And I know the Cowboys are going to bring it. It's up in Townsville. It's a late game. It's going to be greasy. It's going to be wet. It's going to be a fight. And so before you start looking at the Storm, Broncos fans, make sure you don't forget that the Cows are going to be right there waiting. They're going to be right there waiting. All right, Shedheads, deeper dive. Destiny. I think that's a word we all know. It's a word that has been transfixed in the sports world for years. And, come on, we've all heard that great quote, the team of destiny. We've all heard it. It is something that sports loves to say, right? When a team finally gets to that freaking plateau and they get there and they're lifting trophies, kissing babies, all that stuff, they're a team of destiny. Because there's moments that happen in a season for a team that you sit back and go, I remember where I was at. And Shedheads, we got that. We got that Friday night, the miracle in Mudgee. We got that moment. Now, I'll say this right now, and I'm going to go away from the miracle of Mudgee just for a second. And what I want to go to is Vegas. One, it just dawned on me that all the teams that were in Vegas this year are pretty much all going to make the finals this year, unless something fluke happens. They're all going to make the finals. But I will not ever forget talking to Ricky Stewart and just the look on Ricky's face, and then talking to Jamal Fogarty. Those guys knew something that none of us knew, right? They just knew something. There was a glint in their eye. Just something was, they knew they had an ace, and nobody else at the table knew they had an ace, right? So when they went out there and put the performance on that they did over the Waz, I think a lot of people were really, talking bad and talking down about the New Zealand Warriors, saying the Waz, the Habs combinations are off, oh my gosh, it's going to be another season for the Waz, blah, 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 blah. I think instead, we didn't talk about enough about how special this Raiders team is, or as I call them, the Baby Greens. So they keep time and time again, and I know I've said this week in and week out, how this team just steps up no matter what the environment, no matter what the weather condition, no matter what time of day. They play a great brand of footy. They play a brand of footy that if the Raiders are not your first team, they're definitely your second or third favorite team if you like attacking football, because that's what they have. And let's not forget and not downplay their dirtiness in defense. And when I say dirtiness in defense, I'm not talking about them doing dirty action. I'm talking about they have no problem getting in the dirt, holding the line, and digging down deep. All right? That's what getting dirty for me is, right? So let's go on. The miracle in Mudgee. So when Cleary goes to slot the kick and it bounces off, I think half of us were all stunned like we got caught with an overhand right on the chin when we hear that dong, right? But to see how the ball ricochets out, well, you think you're still covered, right, if you're a Panthers fan, until Ethan Strange gets the ball. And this guy, I said it a few minutes ago, is a star. And the game, as I've watched time and time again, this entire season, Ethan Strange has gotten more and more comfortable about his role. He's gotten more and more comfortable about what he needs to do. And he's gotten more and more comfortable putting his team on his back. And that is what you need to see about a young playmaker and a guy that is a star, a straight gun, right? And when he got that ball and he gives a don't argue, the don't argue was filthy. Hey, Dustin Martin, you might want to take a class there from Ethan Strange. All right, Dusty, I didn't mean that. But what I'm saying was that was the most vicious, stiff arm, don't argue we've saw. Because what that told me right then, looking at him with a little bit of blood on his face, was there was nothing that was going to stop him. He was looking, that run was, Penrith, you had a chance to put us away and you couldn't do it. And now, you're ours. And nothing was going to keep him from racing down the field. And we know the competition is with this Penrith club. I think half of them were stunned that Nathan missed the kick. And I think the other half just couldn't catch this guy because he was on a mission, right? And then he makes the great little flip to, to the man himself, the guy with the flowing locks. You know who we're talking about. Do I need to say it? To get the try. It was, it was just special. All right, I'll say it. Kyle Weeks. Okay, there you go. But I was speechless. Okay, I wasn't speechless. Because I'll tell you what really happened. Mrs. Shedadamus was on the phone with somebody. It didn't matter. And I was just screaming expletives at the top of my lungs in the house. And I just couldn't contain myself. And then, she gets off the phone and she goes, "What were you doing?" And I said, "You got to see this." That's how much I was blown away by that moment. Because it was incredible. You don't call a play a miracle at something, the miracle of Mudgee, whatever, the miracle of Austin, whatever you want to say, unless it's something that just you have to keep watching over and over and over and over again. We have the try the Tigers had, we had the miracle of Mudgee. Every weekend we're getting these moments where you just have to keep rewinding them to go, did that really just happen? And it did. And this victory now, yes, Willow, yes, this victory has both hands now on that trophy. Because if you look at what they have to face right now, the Raiders now have to beat the Tigers, and you're going to talk about a demoralized Tigers team. I think what Benji's got in that team right now, they're not going to roll over, but I will tell you right now, they're going to struggle. Because they don't have anything to play for anymore besides just brotherhood and mateship. But the Raiders do. And they are going to put the hammer down on the Tigers. And Adam Dewey isn't there for the Tigers as well. And you wonder if Benji doesn't start playing a few younger guys just to see how some guys look towards the end of the season. I don't know. None of us really fully know what teams are going to do. But I do know that they look good in that regard against taking on the Tigers, right? And then they go up to finish this whole thing against the Dolphins. And we don't know which Dolphins side we're going to get as well, because this is a team that's been playing with so many injuries, and they've got to get a victory this week, because if they don't, the Finns are pretty much done. And what are they really going to have to play for the last weekend of the season? So when I say they've got both hands on the trophy, they've got both hands on the trophy. They haven't lifted it yet, but they've got both hands on it. And that, to me, says everything about what this team has the ability to do, and also what they're going to do in the finals. Now, for the Panthers on the other side of the coin, that was brutal. That right there was two gut-wrenching losses, back-to-back weekends. The Iceman, Nathan Cleary, doesn't convert 2 different times. One time he does, and they yank it from him. The other time he hits the post like that. That's tough. That's really, really tough. And I think that's so tough is why you saw Ivan Cleary make the decision that he's made now, that he's going to rest 16 players for this weekend's clash against the Bulldogs. Because I got to tell you right now, I can't remember the last time I've heard of a coach resting 16 guys. But that tells you right there that Cleary knows top 4 is pretty much out of the equation. And the most important thing for Penrith, who can win it from whatever position you put them in right now. All right? If you think about Penrith, the one thing they haven't done that could really just solidify them, not that they're not already solidified as one of the great teams of all time, is to have them be a team that comes outside the top 4 to win the whole damn thing. That right there would tell you everything, that this team can do anything. They can win from any place. They can win any way that you need them to. But they've got to recharge. They've got to reboot. They've got to reset. And that is why you see him doing it. And I think it's a brilliant move, too. I think it's brilliant. And I'm going to say something, too. Don't be surprised if the Panthers don't push a non-resting Bulldogs team as well. Don't be surprised. I'm not saying right now who my pick is, but don't be surprised if the Dogs don't have trouble with this young Panthers team that's rolling out. But I'll say this right now. No matter if you're a Raiders fan, no matter if you're a Panthers fan, the real winners of Friday night was the rugby league community. Because we're still a couple weeks out from finals, and we got another feeling of a finals competition right there, because that game had it all. It was, nail-biting, edge of your seat, white-knuckling it all the way through. It was the type of game that we love, and we truthfully love when our team's not involved, because we can just sit back with our favorite bowl of popcorn and go at it. So both teams left it on the field. You couldn't ask for anything better, and we got it on Friday night. Now, as we go into the 40-20, Shedheads, we all had a feeling that the axe was going to drop on a couple teams, head coaches, and it's finally done that. We finally have the fallout of two teams that have kind of been hinting for a while that they were going to make moves in their coaching direction. But the Gold Coast Titans and the Newcastle Knights have both made the decision to let their coaches, quote-unquote, know that 2026 is going to be a different direction for these clubs. And, I think we kind of all expected that. I think it was kind of a matter of who was going to take over each one of these positions and each one of these roles. Now, after the loss of the Waz and Desi having a little bit of his meltdown, the Titans didn't waste much time. They went out there and they got Josh Hannay. And the funny thing about this guy, Josh Hannay, this guy has been the talk of the rugby league world, of all these clubs running and wanting to get this guy as their next head coach. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But it does shock me that so many guys think that this guy has so much to bring to the table as a head coach. I know he's been the assistant coach for Cronulla and for Queensland, working with Billy Slater up there. But it does kind of shock me that there has been such a push to get this guy as a head coach for a club. Well, one thing about Dez, we do know that Dez is going to finish out the season. He's going to coach the last two games for the Titans. But I think that the interesting to me is Josh Hannay. And I just don't know. I always worry when teams get so excited to hire a coach that has no coaching experience, right? Sometimes it's a knock it out of the park, and then a lot of times it's a guy that's in over his head, and you look at it. I don't really get that, watching, Hannay when he was coaching with Billy Slater, and he's been in the box up there at Cronulla. He doesn't seem like that's going to be a problem. But to me, is it really him? And stay with me for a second here, Shedheads. Is he really going to be the savior? Or is the Gold Coast Titans going to have to look in the mirror and say, we've got to make some changes all the way around? And they are, but this is going to be their fifth coach in 9 years if you start talking about the start of 2026 when he actually becomes the head boss, right? Fifth coach in 9 years. And to me, that says something about an organization. And I know now the Frizzels have taken over, and I know that they have a vision, and they're two great people, and I think that they will do everything in their power to get Gold Coast going in the direction they need to go. But there's some retention is going to be a huge thing about this guy. Because Tino didn't seem too happy that Dez got moved on. And Tino doesn't have to stay there. A lot of these guys. Jaden Campbell. Now, I don't know which Jaden Campbell you want to sign. I think you'd want to sign the Jaden Campbell of a few weeks ago. But that's a Jaden Campbell you better try to go after. But somebody's going to have to bring that back out of him because he is just falling off. You can't lose Tino. They're already talking that David Fifita is probably going to South Sydney. Probably. I know Wayne Bennett, when he starts getting his hooks into a player, old Clint Eastwood doesn't let go usually. And I'll say this truthfully. It probably will be in his best interest to get out of Gold Coast. And I know that that'll be a big loss for David, for the Gold Coast Titans, if he goes back to his barnstorming best. But at the same time, he hasn't been that way for a little while. And I just think it would be good for both sides to have a break, truthfully. So it's going to be interesting. And that's what his top priority is retention of some of those key players for Hannay. Now, on the other hand, the Newcastle Knights. It seems to me that this move was more of a mutual agreement by the coach, Adam O'Brien, and the Newcastle Knights. I kind of feel bad for Adam O'Brien because I think he got the raw end of the stick a little bit in the standpoint that he truthfully never had a full healthy side. If you look at the amount of games that Kalen Pong has missed over the last couple of seasons, it's been pretty brutal. And for a coach to actually win at a place like Newcastle, you better have all of your weapons, all of your tools. So he's had a bunch of injured. And I know he lost, I think it was his mother he lost last season. So he's been in the wars a lot of emotion with it. So it doesn't shock me at all that he mutually agreed to step down. I think, truthfully, for me, Adam O'Brien needs to just get away for a little while. I would not be surprised if he reappears back maybe with the Sydney Roosters. But I do think that a recharge and a reboot for him is something that's very much needed. Just like Desi, he's going to finish out coaching for the rest of the season, the last 2 games. So that is a good thing. But unlike, Gold Coast running out and getting their guy, it looked for a little bit that Blake Green was the guy that was, leading the charge to the tape to be the next head coach. Everybody knows he's got a strong relationship with Kalen Ponga. Everybody knows he runs the attack for the Newcastle Knights. But all of a sudden, just recently, Justin Holbrook's name has come up. One of the cool things about Justin Holbrook for the Newcastle Knights is that he has actually put on the jersey for Newcastle. He's been a guy that's played for the Newcastle Knights. He does have championship pedigree. He led St. Helens to the championship over the Super League. So I think Justin Holbrook is just too good of a coach for him not to get a head coaching job again. And you could see he didn't run back over to England to pick up coaching back in the Super League. He stayed, and he's worked with Robbo, with the Roosters. He stayed in the mix, just kind of staying around the coaching, because I think he kind of had a feeling he was going to get the nod and a call again. We know that Gold Coast right now is a graveyard for coaches. So a fresh start in Newcastle, a guy who understands the town, a guy who understands the team, he could be perfect for coming back there for the Newcastle Knights. But kind of like Gold Coast, both these teams have a situation of what they need to do. And for me, the first thing that he's going to have to do is he's going to have to look at the spine. He's going to have to figure out who's going to be his 6, who's going to be his 7, if Ponga is really his future, or is it time to break with Kalen Ponga? Because he does have a lot of good young players that are coming up that could actually fit back in that position. So there's some major decisions that whoever the coach is going to be at the Newcastle Knights that they're going to have to make. And unfortunately, I think for this team to go forward, they're going to have to be some pretty brutal calls that may not look popular right when they make them, but that could be game-changing for the organization going forward. So it'll be interesting to see where they go in the direction and who they decide to hire. But the candidates are there, and they are plush. All right, now let's go into round 26. We've got some picks right here. I'm going to start off Thursday night, Panthers versus the Dogs. I'm going with the Dogs. I really think that this young Panther side will push them. But if the Dogs can't get the victory over a team that's resting 16 of their players, you're not going to expect much of them in the final. So I've got the Bulldogs starting round 26 off with a victory. Friday night, Eels versus the Warriors in the Rumble Islands. I'm going with the Waz. I know the Eels have looked good recently, but I'm still going with the Warriors to get the victory. And then the big nightcap for Friday night, Roosters versus the Storm. I'm telling you, a mouth-watering match if Sam Walker was in the side for the Chooks. But without him in the side, I think the Storm playing at night in front of their fan base, it's too much for the Sydney Roosters, and I've got the Storm getting the victory. Saturday, Tigers versus the Raiders. I'm telling you, if it wasn't for the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes of that game against the Cowboys, this is a match that we're all talking about. But instead now, Tigers are out of finals contention. I'm going with the Raiders. They have so much to play for. They're going to get the job done at home. Sea Eagles versus the Dragons. I was really leaning towards the Dragons, but I think if the Sea Eagles play the way that they played last weekend, playing for DC, playing for their finals lives, I think they can get the victory over the Dragons, especially if this Dragons team doesn't drink a little C4 or whatever they need to get themselves up, because it could get brutal otherwise. And finally, Queensland Derby, Broncos versus the Cowboys in Townsville. And that's why I'm doing it, Shedheads. I'm taking the Cows to pull the upset off in Townsville. I got the Cows stunning the Broncos. Sunday, Knights versus the Sharks. You know what? I told you, Adam O'Brien, I want the best for the guy, but the Sharks aren't going to help him out because the Sharks will get the victory at Shark Park. And then last, another Queensland Derby, Titans versus the Dolphins. You know, I want the team to play hard for Desi, but I do think the Dolphins still have something to play for, and they get the victory. So let's go over the picks again. We got the Bulldogs, the Waz, the Storm, the Raiders, the Sea Eagles, the Cowboys, the Sharks, and the Dolphins. My gun of the round, Shedheads, it's got to be the guy that I said was a star himself, Ethan Strange. 1 try, 176 running meters, 2 line breaks, 1 line break assist, 2 try assists, 8 tackle breaks, 15 tackles made, and 69 kicking meters. The guy is becoming elite, and he's our gun of the round for round 25. Shedheads, I hope you're able to recharge. I told you, I don't know, I might need another can of this stuff to keep me going for the rest of the night because, you know, I'm still on doggy duty after I get off this right now. I'm getting ready to have to go walk my 45-pound horse around the neighborhood. But take care of each other. Well, if I'm over, I'm over here in the divided state, so it's really hot. But over there, stay warm if you're down under. But until next week, stay out of trouble. Don't get caught. This is Corey Jackson. You've been listening to Outside the Sheds. See ya.
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.